Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please like and subscribe to the show. Aston Villa have signed Nicolò Zaniolo from Galatasaray. The former Roma attacker joins on a season-long loan. To find out more about Zaniolo, I'm joined today by Lorenzo Bettoni. He's editor of Football Italia, a website for English-speaking fans of Italian football. Lorenzo, welcome to the show. Now, what kind of a player is Zaniolo?
Hello, Francis. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me in. First of all, I would say, Zaniolo is one of the most exciting players in Italian football, to be fair. He's been quite unlucky in the early stages of his career with two knee injuries, which kept him out of action for a considerable time. He can be an attacking winger, he can be an attacking midfielder, he can be even a support striker. There's a variety of roles where he can play in. And to be fair, one of the issues in his early career so far, something that hasn't really matched his talent, is not finding a coach who was able to find the right position for him. So this is his Aston Villa move is quite exciting for Italian football as well, because it's we want to know when Zaniolo can give his best. And probably under Emery, we wonder if this is going to be the right move to finally, see his full talent and see how really good he can be in. The Premier League is the best division, is the best league in Europe. So he's an attacking player, surely. He's an attacking player with technical skills, with physical skills, which I believe have been hugely improving, massively improving, especially after his injuries. He's becoming bigger and bigger. So as I said, he's very exciting, but he hasn't shown his full potential yet. And it's exciting to see what he can do in Aston Villa.
It's particularly exciting to think of him working alongside Unai Emery as well. I think Emery has a tendency to have worked with players who have maybe slightly not reached their peak as a talent, or maybe slightly underachieved before working with them and then just getting the absolute best out of them. It's sort of something he's been doing a lot during his career. So I think in that sense, the Zaniolo signing definitely excites me. But with his injuries, he has had 2 ACL injuries, I think in both knees as well. Do you have any concerns at all that there might be some struggles to adapt to the physicality of the Premier League? Is the Premier League and its physicality the right place for him, given the injuries he's had?
Well, it can be. If he has had a few muscular injuries here and there during his time at Roma, and partially at the beginning of his time with Galatasaray. But I think at this stage, the last injury he had was at the end of, the serious injury, the serious knee injury. The last one he had was towards the end of 2020. So it's been 3 years now. I think at this stage, it has to do a lot with being lucky or unlucky. It has to do a lot with his lifestyle. He's been struggling, especially, not struggling, but he's had a few muscle injuries over the last few years, but nothing major. So I think in terms of physicality, he's ready, because as I was saying, he's growing. You can see he's growing. So I don't think there's a way to predict and to really say, all right, this player, he's too injury prone. This player is going to struggle physically just because he had those sort of injuries. I think he has the physical structure to be, up to the challenge in the Premier League. And then the rest, it's, as I said, I think it's pretty much about being lucky or unlucky, and a lot about his lifestyle off the pitch, which a few people had concerns about it, but I would say that he has way improved over the last few years. Even Mourinho, him, he likes to complain about referees, he likes to complain about players that he doesn't like, even in his team. And he never really complained about Zaniolo. He never really complained about his attitude. Not even when Zaniolo asked to leave, he complained about Zaniolo. He said he had no problems with Zaniolo. So I don't think he has issues. I think Zaniolo knows that at this stage of his career, he needs to prove what he can do, because there are many examples in Italian football where we had great talents, players that we thought would do great on the international stage, and then from one day to another they were gone, they were disappeared, and years passed by very quickly. And I think Zaniolo is there.
Okay, and you mentioned that he likes to play in like a variety of roles, and that's again something Emery likes in his players, that they're versatile essentially. Where do you think his best position tends to be?
Uh, I think it's not somewhere where he's been playing frequently, but I think somewhere between the attacking midfield and support striker. I think that would be the best place for him. He's been playing a lot on the wings with Mourinho, especially on the right wing. He can play there, but it depends on the duties that he has. Like if he plays with somebody who likes to go on the wings and he can cut inside, either from the left or the right, to be fair, then he can be quite good. I see him playing. I mean, I see him creating the most danger for the opposition from inside the pitch rather than on the wings. He can start on the wings, but it depends on the movements of other players. He doesn't have an explosive pace that you would expect from a classic winger. You know what I mean? If he is not a classic winger, he can play on the wings, but he has to cut inside, I think, and that's where he can create the most dangers for the opposition.
Okay, and at Roma, he had some really good times at Roma. He had a few lower times, mainly sort of injury related. But how would you sum up his time at Roma?
Well, highs and lows. Surely the highest was his goal in the Conference League final in 2022. He hasn't scored many goals, and I think also because of his positioning on the pitch, he had a few issues with injuries. But as I said, especially with Mourinho, when the knee injuries were behind him, so he was kind of on and off the pitch, but he played quite regularly. He didn't score much, but he scored a very important goal for Roma's history because Roma never won a major European trophy. I mean, and he managed to win it for Roma. So again, I would say highs and lows because goals contributions were not many. I think with Mourinho, he had a lot of defensive duties as well. He likes players to help defensively. He likes even attacking players to track back, which was something Zaniolo was doing, and he was doing without complaining. I think he was on good terms with Mourinho. Again, he never complained about Zaniolo, even when this past January he said he wanted to leave. Mourinho, he even said, if he doesn't leave, I'm going to rely on him. He said if he stays beyond January, he's going to be included. I'm going to rely on him. But then the club, they said that he had to go because he strongly wanted to leave. So he didn't play for Roma again. But I think the relationship with Mu was good. Again, Mourinho would complain if there's something that he doesn't like, but he didn't. So there's no reason to think Mourinho was on bad with Zaniolo.
Okay, and why did he leave Roma in the end? He's such a talented young player, really. What was the reason for him going?
There had been talks about his contract extension for a long time. His contract, I think, was expiring in 2024, and Roma, especially after his goal in the Conference League final in 2022, we thought Roma would knock on his door and say, "Look, we are going to discuss the contract extension. We're going to offer you a new deal." And I think he didn't see from the club the centrality in that project for him. He didn't see that it could be. He didn't feel that it was important for the club because he thought that after such an important goal, the club would go and say, "We're going to continue together. We're going to offer you a new deal." On the other hand, Roma didn't really do it. They didn't put it on the market, but at the same time, they didn't offer him something that he liked. So they arrived to a stage where Zaniolo did no longer want to stay there because he thought he didn't have enough support from the club. He didn't have, as I said, the centrality in the project that he wanted to have. There was an offer from Milan at that time, but they couldn't match Roma's asking price. So So then Bournemouth came out. He didn't want to go to Bournemouth because they were not in a good position in last January. And in the end, when the transfer window closed in Italy, he was still out of the project, and Galatasaray managed to sign him at the beginning of February. So Roma didn't even sign a replacement for him. They still managed to get to the Europa League final. They ended up out of the top four in Serie A. So then somehow with Zaniolo, especially because Dybala suffered a lot with injuries in the second part of the season. Having Zaniolo would have helped, I think, Roma massively. But yeah, this was the reason why. I mean, he was no longer on good terms with the club. He wanted a contract extension. He thought he deserved the contract extension, but Roma didn't do it. So he decided to leave.
And I'm not how sure how closely you've really followed him in Turkey, but from what you know about it, how has he performed out there?
Well, it's just 12 games, 12 appearances at least. So it's not much time. 5 games and 12 appearances is still a decent tally, I would say. So I think it was positive at least on paper. Then of course you need a longer period of time to see how a player, at least a year, I would say. If you think that he joined in February and it's been like barely 3 or 4 months of football, so it's not really enough. Again, he played in some different positions. He was playing with some players in attack that he know were, not because he had played with them, but because, for example, Icardi, like Mauro Icardi or Dries Mertens, they had played in Serie A already, so kind of linked up with them quite naturally. But I think, on paper it was good because 5 goals in 12 games, it's more than a decent tally, I would say. And it's more than what he scored at Roma in the first part of the season, because he got just one in 2 goals in 17 games, actually. So I think at least on paper he improved in terms of goal tally, but you can't really say that he's settling. I mean, surely settling well, because even if you look at the social media comments on his Instagram account, the post where he says he's leaving Galatasaray, there are Galatasaray fans saying, "Thank you, you'll be missed, we loved you," and all this stuff. He was on good terms with the club, he was on good terms with the fans, and he left a good memory. So I think it was successful, but it was a really short period of time.
Yeah, it is quite amazing the impact he had in such a short space of time, which must surely suggest, what a special talent he is if he can be that loved so quickly. I mean, overall, you look at Aston Villa as a team, trying to get into, even push for Champions League places. What do you think Zaniolo can bring to Villa that maybe we don't currently have?
I think he can bring maybe a little bit of unpredictability in the final third. For sure, he can bring more options. He's a player, especially in this period of his career. I think he knows he has to learn, so he can give one more option. When Unai Emery needs to rotate a little, he can give that push to try to break into the starting 11. He can give that sort of good competition inside the club, inside the team, for the attacking roles. And as I said, he can offer a lot of options. Like, for example, if Unai Emery wants to change system, he wants to use, for example, a false 9, he wants to add an extra striker, Zaniolo can do all of this. He could also play alone up front as a false 9. He did it sometimes even with the national team. I think it's mainly, unpredictability and a variety of attacking solutions. Whether Unai Emery wants to start with him or whether he needs, one goal to level the game, win the game, he can include Zaniolo, so he can slightly change his tactical plan, because he can really cover a lot of roles. But what would I expect, and what I hope for Italian football as well, is that Unai finds his role, finds a place where Zaniolo can play and where he can deliver constantly, so that maybe we qualify for the next World Cup.
Yeah, it's kind of mad that this great footballing nation has not been to 2 World Cups somehow. And then we've, of course, got the Euros as well. So I'm sure that Zaniolo will be aiming to,
Yeah.
solidify his place in the Italian team. He's already been picked there. And I seem to recall that Mancini, who's not there anymore, of course, but Mancini picked him even before he'd played in Serie A. Like that was the level of belief he had in him. So clearly there's a real player there. And I look forward to finding out whether he can do it in the Premier League and bring, so much of his talent to Aston Villa. But Lorenzo, it's been absolutely brilliant to chat to you. Thanks so much for all the information there. I feel like I know a lot more about Zaniolo now. But for those who might not know where you are, where can we find you and Football Italia online?
Well, Football Italia, it's footballitalia.net on the internet. You find our website with Italian football news and Italians abroad, like Zaniolo, for example. And we are on Twitter as well, Football Italia, and myself, I'm Lorenzo Bettoni on Instagram and Twitter, so you can find me there.